I'm sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the empty side, and I don't know where to begin. My wife, Sarah, didn't come home last night. For the first time in years, the ground feels like it's crumbling beneath my feet. Something isn't right. Sarah and I have been married for nearly 10 years. Our relationship wasn't perfect, but I always thought it was strong enough to withstand anything. She was my anchor, the person I trusted more than anyone in the world. Over the past few weeks, however, I'd started noticing changes. She seemed distracted all the time, glued to her phone in a way that wasn't like her. When I asked who she was texting, she'd brush me off, saying it was just her friends. Sometimes she'd laugh at a message, but when I asked what was so funny, she'd simply say nothing important and change the subject. I didn't press her too hard. I didn't want to come across as controlling. Then last night, she told me she was going to a new club with some friends. That was strange for her. Sarah had never been a fan of clubs. She always said they were loud, crowded, and full of drama she didn't need. When I asked her why she suddenly wanted to go, she smiled faintly and said, "I just feel like letting loose for a change. I need this, okay?" I didn't like it. Something about the way she said it made my stomach churn, but I didn't want to argue, so I nodded and told her to have fun, hoping I was just overthinking things. She left the house at 8 p.m., wearing a tight black dress I'd never seen before. She looked beautiful, stunning even, but it wasn't her usual style. Her makeup was heavier than she normally wore, and she seemed nervous. I told her she looked amazing, but she barely acknowledged it. "Thanks," she muttered, grabbing her purse and walking out the door without a second glance. At first, I tried to keep myself occupied. I watched TV, played some games on my phone, and waited for her to check in. But as the hours ticked by, I started to get restless. Midnight came and went. By 1 a.m., I was pacing the living room, checking my phone every few minutes for a text or call. Nothing. By 2 a.m., I called her. It went straight to voicemail. I sent her a few texts. "Hey, are you okay? When are you coming home, Sarah? Please call me. I'm getting worried." No response. By 3 a.m., I was in full panic mode. I tried calling her again, but it still went to voicemail. I thought about calling some of her friends, but I hesitated. What if she was just having a good time and forgot to check her phone? I didn't want to embarrass her or make it seem like I didn't trust her. By 4 a.m., I couldn't take it anymore. I called her best friend, Megan, thinking maybe she'd know what was going on. When Megan answered, her voice was groggy, like I'd woken her up. "Hey, sorry to call so late," I said. "Is Sarah with you?" Megan sounded confused. "No, I haven't talked to her all week." What? My heart sank. Sarah had specifically said she was going out with Megan and some other friends. Was she lying? And if she was, why? I hung up with Megan and started driving. I went to the club she'd mentioned, hoping I'd find her car in the parking lot. It wasn't there. I went inside and asked the staff if they'd seen her, but nobody recognized the description I gave them. By sunrise, I felt like I was losing my mind. I called the police to report her missing, but they told me I had to wait 48 hours unless there was evidence of foul play. Then, around noon, I got a text from an unknown number. It said, "Stop looking for her. She's fine." My blood ran cold. I immediately tried calling the number, but it was disconnected. Who sent the message? How did they know I was looking for Sarah? And most importantly, what did they mean by "she's fine"? If she was fine, why hadn't she contacted me? Why hadn't she come home? I sat down on the couch, staring at my phone, and felt a wave of despair crash over me. Had she left me? Was this all planned, or was something more sinister at play? The message haunted me all afternoon. I stared at it over and over, hoping some hidden detail would jump out at me, but there was nothing. Just 5 simple words: "Stop looking for her. She's fine." I felt paralyzed. If Sarah was truly fine, then why hadn't she come home? If someone else had sent the message, who were they, and why were they contacting me? My mind raced with possibilities, none of them good. I spent the rest of the day trying to make sense of it. I combed through our shared bank accounts and credit card statements, looking for any unusual transactions. Nothing. Her phone's location was turned off, and I had no way of tracking her. I even checked our home security cameras, but all they showed was her leaving the house at 8 p.m., as she'd said she would. By evening, I was desperate for answers. I called her parents, but they hadn't heard from her either. They were as worried as I was, though her mom's voice carried a hint of something else: disapproval. "Did you two fight?" she asked. Sarah's always been sensitive. Maybe she just needed some space. Space. That didn't feel right. If Sarah needed space, she could have told me. Disappearing like this, ignoring my calls, and sending cryptic messages through an unknown number, it wasn't her. Or at least, it wasn't the Sarah I thought I knew. Then, at 7 p.m., I got another text from the same number. My hands were shaking as I opened it. It's better if you let go. Don't make this harder for her. My heart pounded as I reread the words. Were they talking about Sarah? And if so, why were they making it sound like she was leaving me? I wanted to scream, to punch something, but I forced myself to stay calm. I needed to think clearly if I was going to figure this out. I texted the number back. Who is this? Where is Sarah? If she's okay, have her call me. No response. I couldn't sit still any longer. I grabbed my keys and started driving. I didn't know where I was going, but I couldn't just stay in the house, staring at my phone and waiting for another cryptic message. I drove to every place I could think of, her favorite coffee shop, the park where we used to go on weekends, even the diner where we had our first date. Nothing. Finally, as night fell, I ended up back at the club she'd mentioned. This time, I wasn't leaving without answers. I walked up to the bartender and showed him a photo of Sarah. Are you sure you didn't see her last night? I asked, trying to keep the desperation out of my voice. He hesitated for a moment, then said, Actually, yeah, I think I did. She was with some guy, tall, dark hair, wearing a suit. They left together around midnight. My stomach dropped. Do you know where they went? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He shook his head. Sorry, man, I didn't see. I stumbled out of the club, my mind racing. Sarah had left with another man. A stranger? Or was he? Had she been seeing him behind my back? Was this why she'd been so distant lately? I drove home in a daze, my thoughts bouncing between anger, confusion, and heartbreak. When I got home, I noticed something I hadn't before, her closet. I opened it and realized that several of her favorite outfits were missing, along with a small suitcase we usually used for weekend trips. This wasn't just a one-night thing. She planned this. As I stood there, staring at the empty hangars, I felt a wave of emotions I couldn't control. Anger boiled in my chest, but beneath it was something worse, a deep, gnawing sadness. I had loved her, trusted her, and now it felt like she'd ripped my heart out without a second thought. I don't know how long I stood there, but eventually, I snapped out of it when my phone buzzed again. Another text. You'll thank her one day. She's doing this for both of you. For both of us. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just about Sarah. Someone else was involved, someone who thought they had the right to interfere in our lives. I sat down, staring at the message, and realized I wasn't just losing my wife. I was losing everything I thought I knew about her and about us. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, my mind conjured images of Sarah with that man. Who was he? How long had this been going on? And why did she think she could just walk out of my life like this, as if I meant nothing to her? By morning, I was running on nothing but coffee and adrenaline. I decided to call the police again, this time emphasizing the strange messages I'd received. I didn't care if they thought I was overreacting. I needed someone to take this seriously. When I explained everything to the officer on the phone, she seemed more concerned than I expected. Do you have the number that sent those messages? She asked. Yes, I said, relief washing over me. Finally, someone was taking this seriously. Send it to us, she said. We'll try to trace it. But I have to warn you, if your wife left voluntarily, there might not be much we can do. Voluntarily. That word hit me like a punch to the gut. The thought of Sarah choosing to leave, choosing someone else over me, was almost too much to bear. But I sent the number anyway, hoping they'd find something that could give me answers. While waiting for the police to get back to me, I decided to dig deeper myself. I started going through Sarah's social media accounts, looking for anything out of the ordinary. Most of her posts were innocuous. Pictures of our vacations, updates about work, the usual. But then I noticed something strange. A few weeks ago, she'd started posting more selfies than usual. In the comments, there was one name that kept appearing, Nick. I didn't recognize him, but he seemed to comment on almost every photo. Looking gorgeous, as always. Wow, stunning. That dress suits you perfectly. I clicked on his profile. His profile picture showed a tall man with dark hair, wearing a suit. My stomach churned. Was this the man from the club? His posts were mostly about his business, some kind of investment firm. But what caught my attention was a photo he posted 3 days ago. A picture of a fancy cocktail with the caption, celebrating a new chapter. A new chapter. My mind reeled. Was Sarah part of this new chapter? I couldn't stop myself. I sent him a message. Who are you and what do you know about Sarah? He didn't respond. Later that afternoon, the police called me back. We traced the number that sent those messages, the officer said. It was a disposable phone, purchased 2 days ago at a convenience store. There's no way to track who used it. Another dead end. That night, I went to bed feeling more lost than ever. But around midnight, I was jolted awake by a noise outside. I grabbed my phone and crept to the window. A car was parked at the end of the driveway, its headlights off. My heart raced as I watched the silhouette of someone sitting in the driver's seat. Were they watching me? I debated calling the police, but before I could make a decision, the car's engine roared to life, and it sped off into the night. I stood there, shaking, staring into the darkness. When I finally went back to bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that whoever was in that car wasn't just some random stranger. They were connected to Sarah, and they didn't want me to find her. The next morning, I couldn't shake the memory of that car. Whoever it was, they weren't there by coincidence. Someone was watching me, and I needed to figure out why. I decided to drive back to the club one last time. Maybe I'd missed something. Maybe someone else had seen Sarah that night. When I arrived, the place was quiet. It wasn't open yet, but I spotted a staff member cleaning tables on the patio. "Excuse me," I said, approaching him with a picture of Sarah on my phone. "I was here yesterday, but I need to ask again. Are you sure you didn't see her?" He looked at the photo and frowned. "I'm not sure, man. We see a lot of people come through here." But he paused, squinting at the image. "But what?" I pressed. "There was this guy here that night, kind of pushy. He was asking the same question. If anyone had seen a woman who looked like this." My blood ran cold. "A guy? What did he look like?" "Tall, dark hair, wearing a suit. Same guy she left with, I think." The description matched Nick. It had to be him. But why would he be asking about Sarah if she'd left with him? Wouldn't he know exactly where she was? Unless she wasn't with him anymore. "Do you know where they went?" I asked, my voice shaking. The staff member shook his head. "Sorry, man. They left together, but I don't know where." That guy seemed intense, though. Something about him felt off. Like he was trying too hard to act normal, you know? It was weird. I thanked him and walked back to my car, my mind racing. If Nick was looking for Sarah too, then something had gone wrong. Maybe she wasn't with him anymore. Maybe she was in danger. Back at home, I decided to confront Nick directly. I called the number listed on his social media profile, but it went straight to voicemail. Frustrated, I left a message. "Nick, this is Chris. I know you were with Sarah the other night. I need to talk to you. Call me back." I didn't expect a response, but an hour later, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Nick. "Chris, stop digging. You don't know what you're getting into." My hands trembled as I stared at the message. What did he mean? Was he threatening me, or was he warning me? I texted back. "What happened to Sarah? Where is she?" No response. That night, the feeling of being watched returned. Every creak in the house, every shadow outside the window, felt like someone lurking in the dark. Around midnight, I heard a faint noise, a knock at the back door. My heart pounded as I grabbed a flashlight and crept downstairs. When I opened the door, there was no one there, but lying on the doormat was an envelope with my name scrolled across the front. I opened it with shaking hands and pulled out a single sheet of paper. On it was a printed photo of Sarah. She was sitting in what looked like a hotel room, wearing the same black dress she'd left the house in. She wasn't smiling. In fact, she looked terrified. Beneath the photo were 3 words, "Stay out, Chris." I dropped the photo as my vision blurred with panic and anger. Sarah was alive, but she wasn't safe. Someone had her, and they didn't want me to find her. Whoever they were, they had made a mistake. They thought this would scare me off, but they didn't know me. I wasn't going to stop until I found Sarah and brought her home. I couldn't sleep after finding the photo. Every detail was burned into my mind. Sarah's terrified expression, the unfamiliar hotel room, and those 3 chilling words. Whoever sent this wanted to intimidate me, but all it did was fuel my determination. The first thing I did was analyze the photo. I spread it out on the kitchen table under a bright light, scanning every corner of the image. The room looked generic, like any budget hotel: beige walls, a simple desk, and a generic lamp in the background. But one detail stood out: a painting on the wall behind Sarah. It was a beach scene with palm trees. It wasn't much, but it was something. I started calling every hotel in the area, describing the painting and asking if it matched any of their rooms. Most of the responses were dismissive or confused. By the 5th call, I was beginning to lose hope. Then, on the 8th call, I got lucky. The receptionist paused when I described the painting. "That sounds like one of our rooms," she said. My heart raced. "Which hotel is this?" She hesitated. "Sir, may I ask why you're inquiring?" I couldn't tell her the full truth, so I lied. "I'm trying to surprise my wife. She stayed there recently, and I want to make it special when we come back." She seemed to buy it. "This is the Sunrise Inn. We're just off Route 17. I thanked her and hung up, immediately grabbing my keys. I drove to the Sunrise Inn, my mind spinning with possibilities. What if Sarah was still there? What if I was walking into a trap? When I arrived, I parked a block away and approached the building cautiously. The parking lot was half empty, and the neon sign buzzed faintly in the night. I stepped into the lobby, trying to look as casual as possible. The receptionist glanced up. She was young, maybe in her early 20s, and looked bored. "Can I help you?" she asked. I pulled up a photo of Sarah on my phone. "I'm looking for my wife. I think she might be staying here. Have you seen her?" Her eyes flicked to the photo, and for a brief moment, I thought I saw recognition. But then she shook her head. "Sorry, I haven't seen her." I didn't believe her. "Please," I said, lowering my voice. "I think she might be in trouble. If you know anything at all, just tell me." She hesitated, glancing over her shoulder toward a door marked "Staff Only." Then, in a hushed tone, she said, "There's a guy in room 214. He checked in 2 nights ago with a woman who looked kind of like her. I'm not supposed to give out room numbers, but I hope you find her." I nodded, swallowing hard. "Thank you." I walked back to my car, my heart pounding. I needed to be smart about this. If Sarah was in that room, I couldn't just barge in. What if she wasn't alone? What if the man with her was dangerous? I called the police, explaining that I believed my wife was being held against her will in room 214 at the Sunrise Inn. They promised to send someone immediately. While I waited, I parked across the street, keeping my eyes fixed on the 2nd floor where room 214 was located. A light was on inside, and shadows occasionally flickered behind the curtains. 20 minutes later, a squad car pulled into the lot. 2 officers stepped out and approached the front desk. I watched as they spoke to the receptionist, who pointed toward the stairs. The officers headed up, and my stomach twisted in knots. A few minutes later, one of the officers reappeared at the door, waving me over. I ran across the lot, my heart racing. "We found her," the officer said. "She's shaken up, but physically okay. She's waiting in the lobby." Relief washed over me like a tidal wave. I stepped into the lobby, and there she was, Sarah, sitting on a couch with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. Her face was pale, her eyes red from crying, but she was alive. "Sarah?" I whispered, kneeling in front of her. She looked at me, and for a moment, I thought she'd burst into tears. But instead, she said something that made my blood run cold. "Chris, I told you not to look for me. You shouldn't have come." Her words hit me like a slap in the face. I stared at Sarah, trying to make sense of what she'd just said. After everything I'd been through to find her, this was her response. "Sarah," I said, my voice trembling. "What are you talking about? I've been going out of my mind looking for you. You disappeared without a word, and now you're telling me I shouldn't have come?" She lowered her gaze, pulling the blanket tighter around her shoulders. "It's complicated," she whispered. "You don't understand." I was losing my patience. "Then explain it to me. Who is this guy? Why were you with him? And why would someone send me those messages telling me to stop looking for you?" She shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. I thought I could fix it before you found out." "Fix what?" I demanded, my voice louder now. One of the officers in the lobby glanced over, but I didn't care. "Sarah, I deserve to know the truth." She looked up at me, her expression a mix of guilt and fear. "It's not just about me, Chris. It's about you, too. About us. Stop being cryptic and just say it," I said, my frustration boiling over. She hesitated for what felt like an eternity before finally whispering. "I got involved with someone. Someone dangerous." The room seemed to tilt, and I had to steady myself against the couch. "Dangerous? What do you mean? Who is he?" "Nick," she said, her voice barely audible. "His name is Nick." The name confirmed everything I'd feared. The man from the club, the one who left with her, the one who sent me those cryptic texts. But that didn't explain why she was with him in the first place. "Why, Sarah?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Why would you get involved with someone like that?" She wiped her eyes, her hands trembling. It started as a mistake. I met him through work. He was a client. At first, it was just flirting, but then things escalated. My heart sank. You had an affair? She nodded, fresh tears streaming down her face. I didn't mean for it to happen. I thought I could end it before you ever found out. But Nick, he's not who I thought he was. He's controlling, manipulative. When I tried to break things off, he threatened me. Threatened you how? I asked, my voice laced with urgency. He said he'd ruin me. Ruin us. He knows things about my job, about our finances. I don't even know how he found out, but he did. He's been blackmailing me. Her words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. I wanted to scream, to demand why she hadn't come to me sooner, but I could see the fear in her eyes. She genuinely believed Nick had the power to destroy her life and mine. Why didn't you tell me? I finally asked, my voice softer now. I was scared, she said, and ashamed. I thought I could handle it on my own. But then he started showing up at the house, at work, everywhere. When I told him I couldn't see him anymore, he snapped. That's when he made me go to the club. He said if I didn't meet him there, he'd follow through on his threats. And the texts, the photo? He sent those to scare you. He wanted you to back off. He said if you kept looking for me, things would get worse. I felt like the ground was shifting beneath me. This wasn't just a betrayal, it was a nightmare. My wife had been blackmailed, threatened, and dragged into a situation that put both of us at risk. Where is he now? I asked. I don't know, she said, shaking her head. After the police showed up, he disappeared. But he's not going to let this go, Chris. He doesn't just walk away. The weight of her words settled over me. This wasn't over. Nick wasn't going to let Sarah go, and now that I was involved, he'd likely come after me too. We're going to fix this, I said firmly. Together. No more secrets, no more lies. We'll figure out a way to stop him. Sarah looked at me, her eyes filled with doubt. You don't know what he's capable of. I don't care, I said. He messed with the wrong people. As we sat there, plotting our next move, I couldn't shake the feeling that Nick was already one step ahead. This wasn't just a battle for Sarah, it was a battle for our lives. The next morning, I woke up with a singular purpose, to end this nightmare once and for all. Sarah was still asleep on the couch, exhausted after everything she'd been through. I didn't want to wake her, but I knew we didn't have time to waste. Nick wasn't going to disappear just because the police had shown up at the hotel. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, going over everything Sarah had told me. Nick had her trapped, using blackmail to control her. He knew too much about our lives, which meant he'd been watching us for a long time. The thought sent chills down my spine. By the time Sarah woke up, I had a plan. We're going to the police again, I said firmly. This time, we're telling them everything. Her eyes widened. Chris, no? You don't understand. Nick has connections. He said he'd know if I went to the police. He's not bluffing. Sarah, we can't keep running scared, I said. The longer we let him control you, the worse this gets. We need to take the fight to him. She hesitated, then nodded reluctantly. Okay, but we have to be careful. We went to the police station together, and for the first time, Sarah told them everything. She explained how she met Nick, how he'd manipulated her, and how he'd escalated to blackmail and threats. The officers took it seriously, especially after we showed them the text messages and the photo he'd sent. They promised to investigate, but I could tell they were skeptical about how much they could do. Nick was careful, and without concrete proof of his crimes, it would be hard to bring him down. When we left the station, I could see the worry in Sarah's eyes. What if he finds out we went to the police? She asked. Then we'll be ready, I said, though I wasn't sure if I believed it. That evening, we decided to stay with Sarah's sister, Emily, for safety. Her house was in a different part of town, far from where Nick might expect us to be. Emily was shocked when we explained the situation, but she welcomed us in without hesitation. For a moment, it felt like we might actually have a chance to breathe, but that peace didn't last long. Around midnight, Sarah's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen and went pale. It's him, she whispered. I took the phone from her and answered. Nick, I said, my voice steady. What do you want? His laugh was cold and calculating. Chris, I warned you. You should have stayed out of this. You don't scare me, I said, though my heart was pounding. Maybe I don't, he replied. But Sarah does. Isn't that right, Sarah? I glanced at her, and the look of fear on her face made my blood boil. This ends now, I said. Whatever you think you have on us, it's over. The police know everything. Nick chuckled. Do you really think the police can stop me? You're in over your head, Chris. But I'll give you one last chance. Walk away. Let Sarah handle this on her own. Otherwise, you'll regret it. Before I could respond, he hung up. I stared at the phone, seething. He's trying to intimidate us, I said. But it's not going to work. Sarah looked like she was on the verge of tears. Chris, I don't want you to get hurt. Maybe he's right. Maybe I should handle this myself. No, I said firmly. We're in this together. He's not going to win. The next morning, I decided to take a more aggressive approach. I called a private investigator I knew from work, a guy named Greg, who specialized in tracking people down and digging up dirt. I need everything you can find on a guy named Nick, I told him. He's been blackmailing my wife. Greg didn't ask many questions. Send me what you've got, he said. I'll start digging. While Greg worked, Sarah and I stayed on high alert. Every noise outside, every unfamiliar car on the street, put us on edge. We didn't know where Nick was or what he was planning, but we knew he wasn't going to back down. 2 days later, Greg called with an update. This Nick guy isn't as untouchable as he thinks, he said. He's got a shady past, fraud, extortion, and some pretty serious accusations that never made it to court. Looks like he's used to staying one step ahead of the law. Can you find out where he is now? I asked. I'm working on it, Greg said, but be careful. Guys like him don't play by the rules. That night, I got another call from Nick. This time, he wasn't laughing. You've been digging, he said. I don't like that. Good, I said, because I'm not stopping until you're done. He was silent for a moment, then said, You have no idea what you've started, Chris. You think you're protecting Sarah, but you're putting her in even more danger. If you care about her, you'll stop this now. You're the one who's going to stop, I said. And when this is over, you're going to pay for everything you've done. Nick hung up without another word. As I put the phone down, I knew the confrontation was coming. Nick wasn't going to back off, and neither was I. This wasn't just about Sarah anymore. It was about standing up to someone who thought he could destroy our lives and proving him wrong. The tension in the air was suffocating. Every passing hour felt like we were standing on the edge of a cliff, waiting for Nick to make his next move. Sarah and I were doing everything we could to stay calm, but the weight of what was coming pressed down on us like a storm cloud. Greg called the next morning with the breakthrough I'd been waiting for. I've got him, he said. Nick's staying at a rental property on the outskirts of town. The place is quiet, out of the way, a perfect hideout. Send me the address, I said immediately. Greg hesitated. Chris, listen to me. Guys like Nick don't operate alone. If you're thinking about confronting him, you need to be smart. This could go sideways fast. I'll be careful, I said, though I wasn't entirely sure how. All I knew was that this had to end. When I told Sarah what I planned to do, she looked terrified. Chris, you can't go alone, she said. You don't know what he's capable of. I can't just sit here and wait for him to come after us, I replied. I need to take control of this before it's too late. She didn't argue, but the fear in her eyes spoke volumes. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I drove to the address Greg had given me. The house was a small, nondescript property surrounded by trees. There were no other houses nearby, and the only car in the driveway was a sleek black sedan that I recognized from the club's parking lot. I parked my car down the road and approached the house on foot, my heart pounding with every step. The windows were dark, but a faint light glowed from behind the curtains in one of the rooms. I crept closer, keeping to the shadows, until I was standing just outside. Through a crack in the curtains, I could see Nick. He was sitting at a desk, talking on the phone. His expression was calm, almost smug, as if he had no idea how close I was. I pulled out my phone and snapped a photo of him, sending it to Greg with a text. This is him. Let the police know. I was about to back away when I heard a voice behind me. Well, look who decided to pay me a visit. I froze, turning slowly. I saw Nick standing in the shadows, with a gun in his hand. You just don't know when to quit, do you, Chris? He said, his tone mocking. Where's Sarah's leverage? I demanded, forcing my voice to stay steady. Whatever you're holding over her, it ends now. Nick chuckled. You think you can just waltz in here and make demands? You're out of your depth, buddy. Maybe, I said, taking a step closer. But I'm not afraid of you. Nick's smirk faltered for a split second, but then he raised the gun, aiming it at my chest. Brave words, he said, but bravery doesn't count for much when you're dead. Before he could do anything, the The sound of sirens pierced the night air. Nick's eyes darted toward the driveway, where flashing red and blue lights illuminated the scene. "You called the cops?" he spat, his expression twisting with anger. I didn't answer. The truth was, I hadn't expected the police to arrive so quickly, but I wasn't about to let Nick know that. He backed toward the house, his gun still trained on me. "This isn't over," he said, his voice cold. "You have no idea what you've started." Then he bolted. The police swarmed the property moments later, and I directed them toward the house. Nick tried to escape through the back, but he didn't get far. The officers tackled him to the ground and cuffed him as he screamed threats and obscenities. Watching him dragged away was a moment of pure relief. The investigation that followed uncovered everything: the blackmail, the threats, and the network of people Nick had manipulated over the years. Sarah's name was cleared, and the police assured us he wouldn't be able to hurt us again. In the days that followed, Sarah and I worked to rebuild the trust that had been shattered. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when I wondered if we'd ever truly recover. But one thing was certain: Nick was gone, and we had our lives back. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again.